Can you build strength and endurance at the same time? And if so, how do you do it? Now, most people, including myself, would normally argue that this isn't possible, but I think that I've stumbled across something that might actually work. All right, let's start with how do you actually get big in the first place. So all of this is dictated by the Henneman size principle. Really, it's just what's the order that we activate our muscle fibers in. So small activates first and then big comes in later. So what that really looks like in practice is that slow twitch comes on first and then fast twitch comes on later. Now this makes a lot of sense. Slow twitch is really slow to fatigue and fast twitch is very quick to fatigue. So do you want something that fatigues very quickly being the first thing to activate? No, unless you really need it, right? Unless the load's really high. And that's when fast twitch comes on. So if we're doing very low load, simple activities of life, like standing, it's slow twitch. It's those small motor neurons that are firing first. But if we have a big load, something dynamic or heavy, then we're getting up to the fast twitch fibers. Why is that important for how you get big? Well, you want to train the fast twitch and you want to train the slow twitch, which means you need to have a high enough weight to train fast twitch. So we need to lift heavy if we want to hypertrophy those fibers. And if we want to hypertrophy the slow twitch, we need high reps. Why this might sound a bit contradictory is that we've started with slow twitch activation, we've gone to fast twitch activation, but for some reason we're needing low reps to hit the thing that activates last and high reps to hypertrophy the thing that activates first. Even though it sounds contradictory, it does ultimately make sense. Basically, the point here is that slow twitch is getting used earlier, but doesn't fatigue early. It takes a long time to fatigue, so we need those high reps. So basically, we need a mix of that high rep and lower rep heavy weight training so that we can target all the different types of muscles in our body. That's how we get big. And now comes the issue, which is how do you build endurance as well? Now, the reason that most people would tell you this isn't possible, when you hypertrophy a muscle, you do a few things. You increase the amount of sarcomeres, so these tiny little contractile elements in the muscle, and that can look different depending on how we're training. Like we can basically hypertrophy and increase the amount of sarcomeres in series, so one after another, and that'll increase the rate of activation, which basically means we've made it easier to activate a muscle quickly so we can be more explosive. Or we can increase them in parallel, so we're just stronger generally. But the downside of hypertrophy is it reduces something called capillary density. Now, capillary density is what we're training to increase when we train endurance. So we have this predicament. We're training hypertrophy, we want to get big, we want to get strong, and it's killing the thing that we're working on in the endurance front. So yes, strength training impedes capillary growth, but endurance gains don't really affect strength gains. So typically someone will do like essentially a cycle. You'll do a strength cycle, then an endurance cycle. And the endurance cycle shouldn't really affect the strength cycle. But ultimately, you're going to have this give and take where you're building endurance and then you're kind of losing it while you're doing strength. And you're building it back up and so on and so forth. The way around this, it seemed, is blood flow restriction. So why do I say that? So, well, I guess for starters, what is blood flow restriction? It's just putting something like a cuff, really high pressure around a muscle so you restrict the amount of blood flow there. This creates a level of oxidative and metabolic stress that leads to more hypertrophy, more gains, sick, but also increases capillary density. And that's why I'm saying I think it's possible to actually train strength and endurance at the same time. Because if we just do blood flow restriction, we're essentially eliminating the restrictions put on our endurance by strength training. Now, this is all theoretical. I haven't seen any practical experiments about the implementation, but on the face of it, that makes a lot of sense. And I would really love to see what happens if we combine endurance training and blood flow restricted strength training. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been learning all of this and much more as a part of my 50 Days to Rebuild challenge, where I read 50 pages of a physio/exercise book and do 50 minutes of exercise in a day in attempts to rehab myself. All of this that I'm talking about now has come from Newman's kinesiology. Jumping into the exercise portion of things, so I've really been working on my wrist and I've done a bunch of things for it. So first off, I tried a bunch of joint distractions. So one, I tried to pull towards the ulnar side, so like your pinky side. This felt pretty good. And then also I tried something very interesting, I thought. So the classic wrist distraction is sort of pulling to the back of your body and then just pushing your weight over your wrist. But that's always an extension, and I was curious, I could get a lot of issues with flexion. If I could mix that in some way. So I did this over my bench, so I had some room to move my hand, because normally you're on the floor and you can't move your hands at all. And it felt kind of good. It felt like I was still distracting the joint. I don't know if that worked or not, but I thought that was pretty cool. Then I did some CARs. So these are controlled, I think, articular rotations. It's from functional range conditioning, which is painfully hidden information behind a paywall. I despise that. But anyway, I found some of it online thanks to ChatGPT. And basically I was just doing really slow, pain-free, controlled motion in my wrist. Now these are tiny little rotates. Very similar to something I've covered in previous videos, like joint movements from Pavel Sassoline. This isn't really an exercise, it's just, let's do a lot of reps in this area to sort of get some blood flow back here, get some sort of healing in that range, in that area. So I did this after all of the joint mobilizations, and then just tried to do some really conservative sort of loading of the wrist. I think it felt a little better. It wasn't a massive change, but also I think with these joint movements, it's something that will take time to show an improvement, so we'll see how it goes. And something that was absolutely sick, I finally got to try some of the PNF stretches, so proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, just a fancy term for an active stretch. This is something that I've been learning a lot about in this series, really did a lot of digging on it, and I tried to do it for my neck. So I've had an injury in my upper right back/neck since I was 10. No idea how it happened, and nobody's ever been able to address it. So one thing that I know that I did as a kid, which was really bad, was I used to just reef on my neck to try and crack it because it was in so much pain. Following on from that intuition, even though that was bad and that was causing issues and doctors were very clear about that, I sort of thought, well, does it just want to be stretched? And I've done stretches like this before, this isn't my first time thinking of it, but as a PNF stretch I haven't. So I did this, and to make it a PNF, basically I pull down, and then my arm's pulling down and my head's trying to fight it, pulling up. And then you relax, stop fighting it, and you pull down further and further and further. I instantly felt like a pop, and the genuinely instant thought in my head was, is that it? Like, is that the spot? Is that exactly what I've been chasing? Maybe it was. We'll see tomorrow. And yeah, that is about it for day 42. I hope you found it interesting as I did, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.